Okay, hello everyone. Just want to welcome you to our first installment of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. So basically we'll be covering wristwatches and kind of a more casual format. I'm not going to be going through and deciding whose box is better than somebody else's box, or how well it was wrapped up, and or which vendors to shop from, or anything like that. This is just pretty down and dirty, so why don't we just get started. Today we're going to talk about entry-level Swiss automatics. It's a pretty interesting subject. There's a lot of other options out there, but today we're going to talk about entry-level Swiss. So just something that all of these watches have in common is they have ETA-based movements. I mean, probably just straight up ETA, apart from, some designs on the rotors, which you'll probably see here, with a little bit of branding. But other than that, I don't think there's too much in-house tweaking any of these brands are doing, which is good because it keeps everything pretty affordable. So they all have sapphire crystals. Some of them are domed, some of them are flat. Some have a better AR coating than others, but we'll get to that. They all have display case backs. They're all 100 meter or 330 feet water resistant. They are all made out of stainless steel. They all have solid end links, and they can all be had for around $400 to $450 online currently. So without further ado, why don't we jump right into our first piece here. We're going to talk about is the Tissot PRS516. It's actually a blue sunray dial, if you can't tell. And so let's just take a look at it. Here's the nice butterfly clasp on this nice, very, very solid bracelet. You can see here, if it can get in close enough without banging into the camera there. There's a pretty cool little display case back. It has like a steering wheel, which is nice. Signed crown. Pretty sweet looking watch. So it has a flat crystal. It obviously has the day and date complication there for you, and it has a very vintage style to it. Very nice chunky bracelet, and of course the motorsports theme. So let's take a look at it on wrist, which is nice. Get an angle of it from here. It wears nice and flat. I like to wear my watches lower on the wrist. Some people like to go high and throw a bracelet on there. I'm more like to just keep it right here. I'm left-handed, so you'll see me do these reviews from my right hand. So you can see the nice, really great build quality. Feels very substantial on the wrist. Cool thing about Tissot is it's a pretty recognizable brand. It's kind of the Swatch Group's moneymaker. It's their gateway drug into Swiss watches. So it has a really nice blue sunray dial. I don't know if we can capture it without getting too crazy in there with the reflectiveness. But it's cool because it looks kind of black from far away. You take it out in the sun, it's a very nice deep blue color, if we could pick that up. So all in all, really solid watch. It's a nice entry. If for me, I love cars, so this was a no-brainer for me. I enjoy the motorsports theme, and it's it doesn't have crown guards. You can see here it's really flush. So that's another feature that I liked. It really kind of has this kind of retro vibe, but at more of a newer proportions today. So there's about a 42 millimeter. So it's quite a bit larger than a watch that would be worn back in the day, more classical sizing. I have a 7¼ inch wrist, so that's how it looks on wrist. Pictures can be very deceiving. sometimes, you know, the closer they get, they look huge, and then from farther away, you know, and then the design also comes into play. So that's a cool watch, one definitely to consider, and a great entry-level watch. So let's move on now to the Victorinox Swiss Army, or VSA, and it's their automatic Alpnach. So I don't know if I said that right, but you know what? It is just a very cool military style field watch. As you can see, it also has the great display case back. You can see the rotor there. You know, it's very minimal as far as anything exciting going on with the movement, but you know, it's a proven workhorse. So this actually has a rotating bezel, which is a nice feature. It actually is unidirectional, so it only goes one direction, and the clicks are pretty nice, pretty solid. If I can get it going, there you go. So there's not a lot of play in there. So if you set something in your time in it, and as you can see, interestingly enough, it's actually reverse numerals on that bezel. So really, it's more for a countdown type scenario versus what you'll see on a diver style watch, which, you know, would be regular time, where you're kind of measuring where you're at. So it has a date complication. Obviously, it's really, really great, chunky, really nice details. The finishing on it is pretty legit. It has a nice domed sapphire there. You can see a little bit of distortion from it being domed, but I mean, it's a great looking watch, and it's still very legible due to the very large numerals. There's no lume on this watch, so this isn't something you're gonna, you know, want to take into a place where you're gonna be in the dark, but it's just a great kind of watch that is very comfortable. You can wear it in a t-shirt and shorts, which you can't really do for every single watch. Some of them are a little bit too dressy. So what's cool about this one is it has a butterfly clasp, but it kind of has, you know, it has that extra safety, which is nice. So it makes getting on there pretty good. It has that black IP coating, which I was a little bit reluctant about initially, but honestly, I mean, this stuff it feels almost like a rubber coating. It's on there so well. The texture is very nice. I thought it was going to be something that feels like it can chip off, you know, and I can't speak for IP coatings on a lot of other watches, but the Victorinox, they're doing it pretty right here. I mean, I really like it. It's very sturdy. It feels a lot different than, you know, the regular stainless steel here that's brushed, which is really nice. So it makes it really casual, really tough, you know, kind of a butch watch. And what's really cool is that it's actually very comfortable because the links here are actually 3 pieces. So as you can see, this center part and these 2 guys on the side there, they're not just one piece. They're actually all, you know, they're all separate links, which actually makes it very comfortable. So as you can see here, you know, look at all that. It really, you can just wrap around your wrist there, which is very cool. So it's a very nice man's watch. You won't get anybody confused. It's definitely a guy's watch, and it's a cool looking watch. I know right now some of the trends are women's watches are getting a little bit bigger. We're seeing a lot of women wearing kind of more classically men's sizes, because men's wrist watches are getting pretty huge, which I'm not really into. I'm more into, I'm into modern sizing, but I think for me and for my wrist size, I like to stay around 40 to 42, 43 tops. I mean, it also depends on you know, the case shape of the watch, the lug to lug width, you know, how well it sits. Actually, let me get it back on so we can make sure that we show how it rides on the wrist there, because I know that is a big issue. A lot of people, sometimes they buy a watch, it has really straight lugs, so it hangs off the wrist a lot, and there's a lot of gaps there. This one, it has nice turn down lugs, so it actually rides pretty nicely on the wrist. Very, very comfortable. You know, really conforms on there. Great watch. I wish I could find more excuses to wear it. Cool. So let's move on to the Hammy. So our third entry-level watch is going to be the Hamilton Khaki King Scuba. Now, even though it has scuba in the name, it's really would be qualified as a desk diver. As you can see, it doesn't have a lot of lume on there, so it's not going to have a lot of great glowing power at night. I mean, out of the bunch, it definitely has probably the most lume, but they're applied, they're really small. And one thing you're probably noticing right now is that this dome sapphire is very reflective. Which is, it looks great, right? You look at that profile there. It just blends with that bezel perfectly. But one thing is that, you know, it's going to catch reflections everywhere, which is nice in a lot of situations. But for filming purposes or photography purposes, it's really tough to get the dial of this watch, you know, in all of its splendor. So one of the cool things is it has this very interesting date and day complication. We got the day up here at 12 o'clock, and down at the bottom at 6 we have the date, which is not normal, but I think it actually adds a nice symmetry to the dial. Some people might feel like this dial is a little bit busy, but I think it's actually really cool, and it has a very Submariner-esque vibe to it, which, you know, pretty much any diving inspired watch will have. You know, some people will argue the Blancpain 50 Fathoms came out a year before the Rolex Submariner with the rotating bezel and all those goodies, but the bezel on here, to stay on track, very solid. You know, what I use this for diving, you know, it's only 100 meters. I mean, all the watches are 100 meters, but the good thing is it does have a screw down crown, so it makes me think that I could probably, you know, be in the swimming pool with it a little bit longer. Definitely one of the things I like about water resistance in watches is, let me, you know, of course I gotta get it perfectly back. All right, is that I can wash it off. So even though I'm not some big snorkeler or scuba diver or surfer, it's really important for me to have a watch that is in fact waterproof, at least up to 100 meters, which is cool because now if I'm eating, I'm chasing the kids around, you know, whatever's going on, the cool thing is I can wash this off. You know, I can submerge it, I can rinse it, I can really get all the grit and the grime off of it. So I don't have to worry about, you know, I'm gonna have barbecue today, so let me make sure I wear my G-Shock, right? So I don't have to worry about that, which is very cool. And it's, you know, it's from a cool brand. It's Hamilton. They're originally an American brand, which ended up being bought out by the Swatch Group, you know, during the whole quartz crisis of the 70s, when they figured out that, hey, for much less money you can have, you know, a much less interesting movement, but one that's really reliable. You know, the only drawback would probably be that you have to change out the battery. This you don't have to change the battery on, and you know, it has that really clean, cool, sweeping seconds hand. So, you know, I really like it. It's probably one of my favorite little entry watches. It was a real gateway for me. As far as getting into Swiss watches. So without going too far off subject, you know, I'm not going to jump into Japanese automatics or quartz watches. I'll just talk generally while I'll probably bring up a, you know, side-to-side comparison while I do this. Generally speaking, these are very cool. You know, these are pretty well-known brands, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole part of getting into Swiss watches there, is you know, a little bit of brand recognition. You don't want to spend a ton of money on some watch nobody's ever heard of, especially when, I mean, it really is borderline a piece of jewelry. We all have cell phones, you know. I mean, literally, like, little kids have cell phones, so we all know what time it is, and it's all very, very, very accurate. So I'm not too worried about these, you know, as far as timekeeping goes. You know, they all run about, you know, 10 to 15 seconds a day quick, and all I have to do is pull out the crown, you know, wait 10-15 seconds, then push the crown back in, then bam. So that's the one thing I guess I should cover too, is that these are hacking movements. Hacking means when you pull out the crown, it stops. So you can actually get an exact time hack when you're setting your watches, which is really cool. It's something that I enjoy doing. It's kind of, once you go hack, you never go back. So I have a lot of non-hacking movements in other watches, some more lower end, really entry level, just into mechanical watches, you know, namely Orient, Seiko 5s, you know, whatnot. So those watches actually are very cool. They don't have, you know, some things that the reason why getting these Swiss brands, you know, when it's Swiss made, some of the things that make it better is that you get a sapphire crystal. So you only have to worry about that getting scratched up by either another sapphire or a diamond. So it's pretty nice and reassuring to have if you're going to spend the money and you're going to have something you like. You know, for me, I get pretty ADD. If I get a scuff on it, I'm pretty upset about that. So that's something that kind of happened with those cheaper, you know, $150 watches, which I don't have to worry about. These, you know, they can get banged up a little bit and everything can be brought back. As far as, you know, these links can be rebrushed and everything. But you know, just some more, just some little eye candy there for you before we get out of here. So all in all, these are great little entry-level watches. They're from established brands, and you know, there are other brands out there. There are a lot of great micro brands. The thing about micro brands that I find is you can get some really good deals on micro brands. You can get a lot of watch for the money. You can get watches that are much more water resistant, that are just really specced out. You know, I love divers watches, so you can get a divers watch, you know, super solid, super chunky, big domed, you know, sapphire crystal, and all the bells and whistles for a decent amount of money. That, you know, obviously if you're trying to get that out of one of these brands, it would be higher. But as far as entry level goes, a lot of people overlook these brands because they just see all the numbers and, you know, and all these specs that aren't necessarily important to them. So before you go out for that micro brand, unless you want something that's really tough for actual diving, or you know, you're just into some really extreme stuff, or you are just a loom nut and you want a watch that is going to be a real torch in the dark, I'd say don't forget to check out these brands. Hamilton's got a lot of history, Tissot, Victorinox. You know, all these watches, when they were first released, you know, they're around $700 to up to $1,000, depending on where you purchase. Now you can get them, you know, online, Amazon, eBay, and you know, these are brand new prices. You know, even authorized dealers, you can get them for, you know, around $400 to $450. These are really nice little entries in. They'll kind of quench your thirst a little bit. I would say that if you, I mean, you could probably even stop here if you had these three watches. You know, it would be nice to have a dress watch, but not everyone really has any occasions for dress watches. But, you know, I think these are three great watches, a great example of kind of a little mini team of watches that work really well together and complement each other well. So, this is the end of the first installment, and go ahead and feel free to post your comments below. I'll probably do a little write-up and throw a link down there also if you want to check out some of the real specs and really get everything specced out. But generally, I mean, these are all pretty close in spec. We got 42 millimeter, 41 millimeter case, you know, 20 millimeter bracelet. This is probably a 21 maybe. I've read different places. I haven't actually busted out a caliper on it. And then this is another 20 millimeter. So, you know, I appreciate the time, and I'll see you guys next time. So